Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lascan Corla. The Government is working hard to ensure that Ireland is ready for Brexit. In particular, we continue to seek to mitigate as far as possible the potential adverse impacts of a disorderly Brexit. With the impending approach of the 29th of March deadline, we are accelerating our no-deal preparations. The withdrawal of the United Kingdom from the European Union Consequential Provisions Bill is a key part of that work. It covers the primary legislative issues that need to be addressed immediately in the event of a no-deal Brexit, ensuring that key measures and protections are in place. You will note that there is no part of the bill dealing with the remit of my department. That is because my department largely implements European Union policies such as the Common Agricultural Policy and the Common Fisheries Policy, and any legislative changes required will be made at European Union level. This does not mean that my department is not heavily involved in Brexit issues. Indeed, I will be laying at least one statutory instrument before the Houses to reduce the time period for notification of imports subject to sanitary and phytosanitary or SPS checks to 24 hours for imports using roll-on, roll-off ferries. Legislation is just one element of our preparations. I also have been sensitising other Member States and the European Commission to the potentially very severe impacts of Brexit on the Irish agri-food and fisheries sectors, and to the likelihood of specific supports being required in order to deal with these impacts. As part of Brexit planning, my department has carried out a detailed analysis of the implications for Irish agri-food exports in a worst-case scenario, whereby the UK applies the European Union's existing tariff schedule on imports. This analysis found that the estimated cost of potential tariffs for the sector as a whole is €1.7 billion based on Irish agri-food exports to the United Kingdom of €4.8 billion in 2016. The decision as to how and when the United Kingdom might impose tariffs on imports from the European Union in the event of a no-deal Brexit is a matter for the United Kingdom Government. The institutions of the European Union are very well aware of the likelihood of a significant impact of a no-deal Brexit on Ireland's economy, because this has been part of the discussion from the beginning, and indeed this is explicitly recognised in the Commission's own communication on contingency planning. Recently, I had bilateral meetings with Commissioners Hogan and Vella to discuss the potential impact of a no-deal Brexit on the Irish agri-food and fisheries sectors. We discussed the unique exposure of these sectors to the threat and challenges that it could present. I stressed the need to be ready to deploy a range of measures to mitigate the potential impacts on farmers and processors, including through traditional market supports and exceptional aid under the CAP's Single Common Market Organisation regulation, increased flexibility under state aid regulations, and a common approach to managing fisheries and additional funding under the EMFF. I am aware that a number of deputies have queried why reference to a support package for farmers and the agri-food industry has not been included in the bill. Any support package is dependent on a number of variables and in any event would not require change to primary legislation. It is not possible to introduce a support package until we know what type of Brexit we are dealing with or without a deal, and the implications of such a Brexit on the agri-food and fishing sectors. My officials are in ongoing contact with the Commission and other Member States on these issues, and we won't be found wanting as a government when it comes to supporting the sector. We will continue to prepare for all eventualities. To date, I have provided significant support to the agri-food and fisheries sector. In Budget 2017, I introduced Farmgate business cost reduction measures in order to enhance competitiveness, including a €150 million low-cost loan scheme. In Budget 2018, I introduced a €50 million dedicated Brexit package, which included supports to Bord Bia and Teagasc, as well as a contribution to a €300 million joint Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine and Business Enterprise and Innovation Department Brexit loan scheme, at least 40% of which is available to food business. In Budget 2019, I introduced a €78 million package for farmers, fishermen, food SMEs, and to cover additional costs related to Brexit as follows. €44 million of that in direct aid to farmers through increased spending on areas of natural constraint, the introduction of a beef environmental efficiency pilot scheme, and additional funding for the horticulture sector. €27 million for capital funding for the food industry, including €13 million in support for food industry competitiveness and innovation, €3 million for artisan and micro-food beverage programmes through the LEADER programme, and for lean manufacturing initiatives designed to improve competitiveness, An additional €5 million for Board Bia, bringing the total grant in aid to €46.6 million. This is a 60% increase in funding for marketing and promotion of our food offering since 2014, and €6 million in funding to progress an €8 million food and innovation hub in Tagus Moor Park, of which €2 million was provided in 2018. €7 million for the recruitment of additional staff and the provision of ICT hardware and software to carry out the greatly increased volumes of import controls and export certification arising from Brexit. In addition, the Minister for Finance, Paschal Donoghue, announced the Future Growth Loan Scheme, which will be rolled out in 2019 and for which I made provision of €25 million in 2018. The scheme will provide long-term unsecured investment finance for farmers and small-scale companies in the food and seafood sectors. Our preparations also include intensive work in conjunction with other government departments to ensure that trade continues to flow through our ports and airports in the event of a no-deal Brexit. Work in this regard has been focused on 3 areas, namely infrastructure, staffing and information technology, and in 3 key locations, that is Dublin Port, Rosslare Airport and Dublin Airport. On infrastructure, we have been engaging very closely with the Office of Public Works, the Department of Transport, the Department of Health and the Revenue Commissioners in relation to the physical facilities that will be required to carry out import controls at these 3 locations. Areas being addressed here include inspection facilities, staff accommodation, parking and logistics, and traffic management. On staffing, we are in the process of recruiting and redeploying staff required to carry out the range of controls needed. These controls are carried out by a combination of portal inspectorate staff with appropriate veterinary and technical supervision. The Department is working very effectively with Customs and others to provide the resources needed to apply the necessary controls, and I am confident that the State will be in a position to apply controls at the appropriate time. On information technology, my department has established a project to coordinate the identification and delivery of ICT infrastructure and systems to support the additional requirements of staff engaged in control processes in Dublin Port, Rosslare and Dublin Airport. The delivery timelines in the event of a disorderly Brexit are extremely challenging, but officials are working with the greatest urgency to ensure the necessary requirements are in place by the 29th of March. We must bear in mind that, regardless of the kind of future relationship that the European Union has with the UK post-Brexit, things are going to change. There will be new customs procedures and regulatory requirements along agri-food and fisheries supply chains, but the Government will be working to keep the impact of these to a minimum. There will also be additional export certification requirements in certain areas. Throughout all of this work, the focus has been on the need to discharge the Department's legal responsibilities while ensuring the minimum possible disruption to trade. My Department will continue to actively participate in the whole-of-government approach to dealing with Brexit, and this bill is an important element of the whole-of-government response. I commend the bill to the House. Thank you, Carla.